Welcome everyone to the 6 round post-fight show for UFC on Fox 24. Demetrius Johnson versus Wilson Hayes. I'm Zane Simon, joined by Eddie Mercado, both of us over from BloodyElbow.com, running down a pretty damn good night of Fox fights. Honestly, this card looked strong from the outset, and it delivered.
Yeah, I was extremely excited. I was excited going into this fight. I had a lot of hopes for the card and a lot of names on the card too. And damn, did it deliver, especially the main event. Holy shit, did that main event deliver.
Yeah, the Volkov, Nelson, Carneiro, Stevenson was a low point. Like all sudden, that was like this little black hole right in the middle of the card where people were starting to be like, "Oh my god, what is going on?" And then it just hit an immediate high with Jacare Whitaker, with Waterson, Namajunas, and then Johnson Hayes. And people were starting to get a little touchy about DJ styling on Hayes, but he put him in. He slapped that armbar on there, made it all official. And
yeah, once he felt comfortable going to the ground, DJ was just unloading some vicious ground and pound.
yeah,
You know what's crazy? He made the number 3 flyweight in the world look like he has no business in there with him. And that is crazy. That is crazy.
Absolutely nothing. I mean, Hayes landed 5 punches in the first round. And he did that pressuring. Like, it wasn't like Hayes was the one taking off and DJ was like, just running or DJ was running after him and Hayes wasn't fighting. DJ was sticking and moving. He was landing shots on Hayes, and Hayes was pressuring the whole time. 5 punches. 5.
Yeah, it was bad. Hayes had absolutely nothing for him. I mean, absolutely nothing. And
yeah, I talked about it before, but Hayes would have had to fight such a drastically different fight than is anything like how he fights to approach DJ. Like, decent power boxing that's pretty rote but functional, and then good wrestling in a top control ground game that's all about position before submission. Like, that's not going to beat DJ.
Nah, not at all. And what is going to beat DJ though? Like, what would it take?
You have to be this crazy, big, powerful whirlwind. You have to be Tim Elliott with a gas tank and with like a little more size and actual power.
Actual power is definitely what it is.
Yeah, you have to be able to show Johnson looks standing and on the ground that he just would not have trained for, because nobody in their right mind would go for them.
And you have to put Johnson away.
Yeah.
Like, remember when he fought Dodson? Dodson was connecting with some really great shots, hurting DJ. And then as the rounds went on, he's like, holy shit, I found my opening. And he started to clinch with Dodson. And if you give him time, he's going to figure you out.
Yeah. Because you have to be, on top of that, you have to be an excellent takedown defender, excellent grappler. Because if you leave any of those parts of your game unguarded, he'll find them and he'll figure them out and he'll break them. So
yeah, I guess we should probably tell everybody who won and how.
Yeah.
They know who won, but how he won.
Well, okay, so Demetrius Johnson slapped on an arm bar on Wilson Hayes from mount in round 3 after totally dominating him easily. I mean, it was just incredibly one-sided. I would have personally given Johnson a 10-8 round 1, even though he didn't hurt Hayes at all. If you outland your opponent 5-1, to me, that's like, I mean, how else are we scoring? Like, you can't look at that and then score like, you can't give that a 10-9 and then give what Alexander Volkov did to Roy Nelson a 10-9. You can't.
Yeah, but like when you think of it that way, you have to start adding in 10-7s and 6s.
Nah, you don't. Just make 10-8 anything that's super dominant, super one-sided.
So did you give the first round a 10-8? I gave it 10-9.
I personally gave it a 10-8, but people are gonna hate that and call me crazy. And
no, it's not crazy.
I just say, when I actually start judging fights as a job, then y'all can come after me. Until then, I don't give a shit if you don't like it, because it doesn't matter. It's never the least important thing in the world, and the most argued thing out there is what the proper score some person online gave a fight is. Like,
yeah, no,
you scored that a 10-8, you're the big, you're the dumbest person alive, and you should never be allowed to judge fights. I never want to judge a fight. That's the worst job imaginable. You want to,
I think it's important for a lot of people to express whether they think it's a 10-8 or a 10-9, especially right now in this transition period.
yeah.
Because there's going to be some gray areas. Some fights where it's like, well, like we saw one tonight that I think was pretty close. I don't even remember which one it was, but
We'll run it down.
Yeah, we'll get there.
All right. So in the co-main event, Rose Namajunas put it on Michelle Waterson. And, I mean, if DJ being dominant was impressive, Namajunas being that dominant, that surprised me. Because I gave her the edge. I thought she might get caught up with some bad spots in the ground game just because Waterson can be so sneaky, and Namajunas can be, as we saw really early in that fight, scared off solid parts of her game into mistakes. Like, she got hit a couple times she got hit with a side kick to the head, went for a bad takedown. Waterson hit her with a hip toss immediately. But from there, Waterson or Namajunas' better ground game got her through that and got her back control. But like, other than that one moment early, which I expected a lot more of the fight to be like that, Namajunas just dominated. She absolutely showed Waterson the door in that fight in a way that shocked me.
I think it shocked everybody, honestly, especially, Rose coming off the loss to Kovacevic. I didn't really know what to expect from her coming out in this, but damn, did she show up. That head kick she landed, oh my God, that was so beautiful. And the way it was coming, like, Waterson was turned sideways, like it was like the most perfectly placed kick you could ever do, and damn, she went down. Sack of potatoes.
Yeah, and then of course, when she's getting choked out, Namajunas is choking her out, and her eyes are all like, she looks like when Arnold Schwarzenegger popped out of the dome in Total Recall.
Oh, I cannot wait for the gifs and the memes of that. Oh, what a sight! But like, blood was pouring out of her nose and everything. Yeah. I felt bad for her. You know what I mean? Like, I've talked to her before. It's like, yikes, that was a scary looking moment.
Yeah, well, I mean, she signed up for it. You can't feel too bad for her.
It's part of the job. But man,
it's part of the job.
Rose looked great.
That means that Namajunas gets next in the title shot circuit, and that may be unkind. I mean, she looks like she's ready. She looks like she's as ready as she can be. But Joanna Jędrzejczyk, even Jessica Andrade, like, these are not kind people to face right now.
Yeah, and it's really Rose's striking, in my opinion. Trevor Whitman is doing such a great job with her and building her confidence, because she really can strike from the outside. Yeah. Like, she is becoming a proficient striker. But with that being said, JJ is on a whole nother level.
Yeah.
I mean, a whole nother fluidity to her style. But hey, I would love to see it. I'm down.
Oh, yeah. No. Andrade might actually be a better matchup for Namajunas, because Andrade is not the best grappler. She's a good top position. If she can get big takedowns and play top position, she's good. But if you put her in scrambles and stuff like that, she makes mistakes. She gets over aggressive. She'll screw stuff up. So Namajunas having a good wrestling and grappling game could be a bigger problem against Andrade than Jędrzejczyk, who is practically impossible to take down and functionally work on.
Yeah, it's interesting. Do you think Rose will get the shot next, though? You think she'll get
I mean, who else would? There's nobody, there's nobody set in the way she is. There's nobody in her position. And she's not only that, but she's the most marketable person to put up. So,
and it's crazy because she has one win.
Yeah. So, but it's the Kovacevic, Kovacevic put a hell of a good fight up against JJ. So, and Namajunas looks like she's improved since then. I mean, the big thing with her fight against Kovacevic was she was winning the outside striking exchange, and because she couldn't hurt Kovacevic there, she lost faith in it, and she started to get sucked into this clinch game she couldn't win. But
fucking knees, bah.
Yeah. But against Waterson, she looked like she had the confidence to stick out there, even as Waterson was touching her up with stuff. Like I said, I think it showed up a little bit early when Waterson stung her with a head kick, and Namajunas immediately went for a bad takedown. But after that, she looked really solid out there. So if she can keep that straight, they need people. They need her right now. So I got to think she's next in line.
Yeah. What do you think about Watterson? What's next for her?
I mean, as long as she's a marketable face for the division, she can just face another good top contender off a loss. I mean, it may not be a great fight for her, but there's the loser of Gadelha Kovalkiewicz coming up. You know, there are going to be top fights in that division where Watterson can be a name to sell along with whoever she's fighting.
Yeah, and she's super down to do media and stuff. Like she's all about promotion, so why not?
For that, we have Robert Whittaker versus Jacare Souza. I called that upset all day.
Son of a bitch, you jinxed him. I'm putting this on you, Zane.
You can't jinx somebody by saying they're going to lose.
Nah, man. But just, I mean, you pretty much called it to the T. I mean, Whittaker has the takedown defense, and his hands are just too lethal for Jacare's old ass to deal with.
Jacare, I mean, the thing is if you're terrified of what Jacare is going to do when he comes after you, like a lot of fighters are, rightfully, then his style of slow stalking where he'll just march in with like a good sharp overhand or a hook or a good sharp straight, and then he weaves behind it and darts in for the takedown, like it's off you, because it's not what Derek Brunson's doing, where he's just coming after you with everything and you're just, if you can fight him off long enough, it's all going to go away. It's this slow, like, how do I react? Is the next thing coming at me a takedown or a punch or whatever? But if you're not afraid of his takedowns, if you can stuff him the way Whittaker can, and his takedown defense is superb, then that style of only throwing one big shot, of only, of moving straight in, that gives you a lot to counter, a lot to work with. And for Whittaker, it was just, after a little while, you could see every time Jacare was ready to pull the trigger, Whittaker was exactly ready for what to throw in response.
And the speed discrepancy is so crazy. Jacare looks so old out there. I hated it. I gotta say, like, I hate seeing him be all old and just. It's coming to an end. Like, I feel like he's not going to get a shot at the title.
Yeah, at some point, being 40 is being 40, and it has to eat him alive, because Michael Bisping was made for Jacare to beat.
Michael Bisping was made for everybody to beat.
I know. I love Michael Bisping as champ, and in that way, like, I hate to see Jacare lose this, but I love it because we get more of Michael Bisping running his mouth as champion, which is just beautiful.
Well, you know what? Jacare just signed a new 8-fight deal, so maybe he will, if the planets align in a certain way, he might get that title shot somewhere. Yeah. Maybe.
I mean, there's a lot of people, not Robert Whittaker, that he can beat out there. It's just, even at 40, it's just that Whittaker, people don't realize how good his takedown defense is. Like, you can see somebody like him when they do everything right. And like, that's technical skill. It's not just, and BJ Penn had amazing takedown defense, but it's not just BJ Penn hopping on one leg and you're like, oh my God, this freak phenom, look at how he can get out of these takedowns like nobody else can. Whittaker, he does all the right shit. He digs for the right underhooks. He steers and he diverts the momentum of his takedown opponent. He knows exactly what he's doing and how to stop that. And that makes it's so much harder for a guy like Jacare to beat him.
And it's instant too. Like, Whittaker's not out there thinking about it. He's just reacting properly in the right ways. And fuck, man, he's tough to deal with. He is the dark horse of the division for sure. And he is knocking on the door, man. He is knocking up the door. But the middleweight title is so clogged. Like, no one's anywhere near a title shot.
He's in Jehovah's Witness position where he's going to be knocking at that door forever, and Michael Bisping is looking through the keyhole like, oh, no, I'm never opening that door.
That is beautiful.
Okay. But, to open up the main card, then we had Renato Moicano versus Jeremy Stephens. Did you score this fight from Moicano?
I'll tell you this much. That last round, I was so tempted to score it for Jeremy Stephens because of Moicano's timidity and him running away.
Yep.
And like drawing the boos from the crowd. like my pen wanted to go 10-9 Stevens, but like just the sensible side of me was like, no, Stevens did not win this round. He was eating jabs. He was wearing it on his face, jelly donut. No, sir. I gave it to Moicano.
I scored it for Stevens. I maybe it was the booze, maybe it was the running that swayed me. Also, it was mostly I think what it really was Moicano shelling up, and even if he ate some of those shots on his arms, just letting Stevens kind of wail on him. I don't. I like to score that for the fighter that is actually like creating that offense. I don't like that kind of defense. I think that it does. It's not. It's playing too chancy, and I was willing to give Stevens the fight, but I will say, in my own defense, I am totally fine with Stevens losing that because he is a 10-year veteran of the sport who should know better. Like, he knows how to fight better than that, and if he doesn't, then he deserves to lose. It's the John Moraga versus, what's his name? Mateus, what was, who did John Moraga lose to in the ugliest fight of all time?
Oh, John Moraga.
I got busted for drugs immediately afterward. Matthias Nicolau.
Okay.
It's the John Moraga Matthias Nicolau thing where when both guys are just circling each other doing nothing, I gotta go with the prospect because the veteran should know better. You gotta know that doing nothing is losing you this fight. You gotta fight better than that. So,
but at least Moicano was pumping his jab. He was landing the jab, sometimes throwing out the leg kick. I really didn't want to give him that third round, but I did. I gave him the first and the third. I'm not. He didn't win me over though. I'm not a Moicano fan.
He didn't win over, but it's a massive step up, an absurd step up that didn't even make sense on paper. So for him to play it safe and win it, good on him. Jeremy Stevens has been doing this thing for 12 years now. If he doesn't know how to cut off the cage, that's on him.
Yeah, but the thing is, Moicano, he just beat a number 5 guy, but
he's not number 5.
It's not the fight he's going to get because of this, I think, is going to be an ass whooping. You know what I mean?
Which is good. That's good. That's how it should be. He played it safe. He got a huge win. Now he'll get thrown in over his head and he'll get his ass whipped, and that's a good that'll be his learning experience.
Okay, yeah. Maybe he'll fight Brian Ortega next when he comes back. That would be nice.
Although I'd also unfortunately he's off a couple losses, I think, but I'd also like to see him fight Dennis Bermudez.
Yeah,
for
Bermudez is one of those guys who you can't really ever count him out. He could definitely win any fight at any given time. But he just can't seem to get his shit together in the cage.
Yeah, which is why I would be happy to see Renato Carneiro fight him and be like, prove it wasn't a fluke, because this dude can't get his shit together, but is violent as hell. And if you go to sleep on him, he'll knock you out or wrestle you into the ground.
Fuck that, Darren Elkins. Darren Elkins.
That's just unkind. See, that's unkind. Darren Elkins would whoop him.
Well, that's what I thought about the number 5 Jeremy Stevens. I thought he was going to take his lunch money.
All right, that brings us to the final Fox prelim of the night: Alexander Volkov versus Roy Nelson. I mean, I don't know why I don't dislike Roy Nelson at all. I know he's not always the most popular fighter. Some people dislike his attitude, his whole style, all that. I don't dislike it at all.
I like him,
but I like him fine. I do not feel like he is a functional top-level fighter at this point.
No, he looked like absolute shit out there. Absolute shit.
And this isn't any different than he's looked since beating Czech Congo in 2013. His wins over Nogueira, Rochelt, and Silva, none of those are pretty, great wins that show off Roy Nelson as this amazing fighter anymore. If they weren't the fighters they were, Roy Nelson would be on a 7-fight losing skid,
And you know what I realized tonight? Roy Nelson is 40 years old.
Yeah.
40.
He looks it and fights it too.
Yeah, he's looking 40 nowadays.
Yeah, I'm not saying he needs to retire because nobody needs to retire. Nobody needs to stop doing their job before they want to stop doing their job. If he wants to go out there and fight people, that's all on him. But it is hard to get excited to watch him fight anyone at this point. Like Volkov is a reasonably decent heavyweight in his prime, going to beat you fighter. Definitively, yes.
Man, I think Volkov's growing on me. Like, I was really anti-Volkov when he came over to the UFC. I wasn't high on him when he was at Bellator, always getting wall installed and always leaving his chin up to be hit. I thought he wasn't that good, and he shows up in the UFC doing some way better than I thought he would. Like, he really
he's tough as shit. Like,
and
that's
he's like filling out and getting thicker, and
yep,
he's turning into a force. And if he can just keep sharpening his tools, I mean, he might be creeping up there into the towards the top 5.
Well, it's heavyweight. I mean, if he just waits, he'll be in the top 5.
Well, shit, look at light heavyweight. you will wait there.
Light
heavyweight. I'm about to make a run at light heavyweight.
Light heavyweight, he'd be fighting for a title tomorrow. Oh, God. All right, that division, that just makes me depressed. Let's get to Tom Duquesnoy, because that does not make me depressed. He had a fight against Patrick Williams. He got hit a bit. People were a little, like, oh, this kid's defense, it's a problem. He also knocked Patrick Williams the fuck out with some beautiful elbows. What did you think of that fight?
I thought it was an excellent debut from Duquesnoy. We got to see him overcome some early adversity, and it was an excellent opponent for him, someone who hasn't fought since 2015. So it was perfect. You take a guy pretty athletic who comes out, blows his wad, and is completely gassed by the end of the first round. And Duquesnoy just kept coming forward, kept putting it on him, realized that Williams was pretty much gone, and did what he had to do to get him out of there. I thought it was an excellent performance.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that, first of all, every high offense action fighter who has ever come into the UFC gets shit on for their defense, because people don't realize if you're putting that much offense on people, you are going to get hit. Cody Garbrandt, Conor McGregor,
TJ Dillashaw.
Dillashaw came out sort of with that wrestling thing and evolved, but like Thomas Almeida, all these dudes coming out, people are like, oh, this dude's fucking defense. And for Thomas Almeida, it did cost him relatively, but like these fighters, they will evolve as they go forward with that. And for Williams, like how hard Williams had to fight to create that offense just drained him entirely. He had to work.
I actually gave the first round to Duquesnoy. Yeah. I thought he came back and he hurt Williams there at the end.
Well, you can't not give it to Duquesnoy when he almost knocks the dude out in the first round.
Yeah.
Like, Williams does not win that round if he's almost knocked out.
Mm-mm.
So
I think they were giving Williams a little too much credit for dropping Duquesnoy.
Yeah, and I mean, partially, too, it's people don't realize how good an athlete and how fast and how powerful Williams is. His defense is awful.
Yeah.
But he came out with the right strategy.
Like, people don't even know who the fuck he is.
Exactly. And he came out with the right strategy. He said, okay, here's this kid who is expected to blow me out of the water. I got to come out and put it on him. And he did. And that's perfect. Like, that's how you got to go out there. But it also means, like, you can't fight at that pace for 3 rounds. So, Duquesnoy got hit a bit. He got dropped. He fought through some adversity, but he also knocked the dude out and looked awesome the beginning of round 2. So I got no problems with that performance from him. Before that, Rashid Magomedov beat Bobby Green. Bit controversial, maybe, but kind of exactly the fight I expected, where Green just was too willing to play Magomedov's game. Landed a lot more knees in the clinch, but that was about it.
It was a sticky fight. It was real close and real, like, tit for tat. Real technical, which I love to see. Like, I really love these both guys super focused, not a lot of crazy mistakes. There was a weird moment, though, when Bobby Green got punched in the eye, and he, like, looked to the ref and called the timeout himself and got, like, 5 minutes to recover from that. Like, what the fuck was that shit? What's up with fighters calling their own time? Like, they kind of need to
Yeah,
clamp down
that's
on
just
that.
it's the basketballization of our sport, where like
The flops.
the flops. It happens. It's something that fighters have figured out over time that they gotta play to their best, and I don't blame them because shit does not get called in this sport at all if you don't call it yourself. Like, refs will let a dude grab the cage, let a dude kick you in the crotch, let a dude poke your eyes, whatever, if you're not out there holding your own face. So it's just a reaction to the reffing, I think. But it's also, it's also an indictment of the reffing when a dude gets punched in the eye and holds his eye and tells the ref stop, and the ref's like, oh, okay, yeah, we should stop this.
Yeah. Like, you shouldn't be able to talk the ref into it. Like, if the ref misses it, you miss it. Like, stand by your calls, God damn it.
Well, it's also, I think what it really points out is a need to have a second. What would be ideal, honestly, is to have a second ref watching the fight through a monitor with an earpiece into the ref in the cage to tell him immediately what's happening with a foul. What is he seeing on screen that the ref isn't seeing in the cage?
Yeah. But, man, that's just going to lead to a whole nother can of worms. Chael Sonnen's already bitching about, Pride having the earbud.
Don't listen to Chael. Fucking don't listen to Chael Sonnen. Whatever you do, for God's sake, Chael Sonnen will tell you anything you want to hear. Literally any, and you know this. I've talked to Chael. I love Chael. But he will tell you anything you want to hear.
It's true. It's true. But earpieces on the ref, maybe.
Maybe it would be better than, I think it would be better than what we got now. Anyway, that brings us to Tim Elliott, Louis Smolka. How far up on this is your fight of the year? On your fight of the year list is this?
I don't think it's fight of the year for me. There weren't enough close finishes.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole fight was a scramble. Super exciting, back and forth scramble. I mean, it's really, when you see these flyweights going at it like that, I mean, they do things that you do not see in other divisions. Like heavyweight. Like a heavyweight could not get out of some of those situations that Louis Smolka got out of. Like, he's like arching his back in these weird ways, and like, I almost feel like he popped his shoulder out a couple times to get out of some of those moves, but
you went all Lethal Weapon.
Yeah. It was crazy, man. Like, just one gigantic scramble, and if you blink, then you missed a transition somewhere, and it was constant guillotine chokes and constant just back and forth. It was great. It was an excellent fight. Not fight of the year, but definitely exciting. Probably fight of the night for sure.
Yeah, it was a cool fight. I'm just glad. It's always nice when you see a matchup like that where it's like two dudes who love to scramble and scramble really well, and they don't end up in a bad kickboxing match. They end up in 15 minutes of scrambles. And that's just all you ever want to see out of a fight like that. So
I hate seeing Smolka get taken down so easily, though. Like, that pisses me off. Stop it, dude. Like, fucking. I feel like he's not even trying.
Yeah, I think it's just that he's not, like, somewhere in there, he's not the fastest athlete. It's weird because he can punch pretty fast when he wants, and he can, like, hit some awesome switches and scramble and stuff like that, but there's somewhere he will just let his opponent dictate the pace and the place of the offense, where it's like, oh, if they throw first, they'll land. Or if they get in on a takedown, they'll get that takedown. And then he will be the tangly, weird octopus that located, but he lets his opponents dictate pace, and it results in another loss. A fun, fantastic loss that should keep him in the UFC, but another loss nonetheless.
Yeah, he'll definitely stick around.
Aljamain Sterling, Augusto Mendez. Must-win fight for Sterling. He showed up with some more confident boxing. I'm not even going to say better, but more confident. Got Mendez down and was able to out-wrestle him, outwork him on the ground a few times. Yeah. Solid showing for Sterling.
Sterling definitely needed that win. He strikes like he's a Jackson Wink fighter. You know what I mean? Like, he actually
the old school Jackson Wink, not the Brandon Gibson Jackson Wink, but like
right, the crazy, flashy, athleticism based striking. But man, I just feel like he could just really benefit from some fundamentals, like some fundamental striking, jab, cross, hook. Like it's the simple shit that works.
I mean, just seeing him sit down and throw punches is a big step forward for him,
No, it is.
honestly.
Like committing to the pocket is a huge step up. Um, and he's looking like he's dealing with his not liking to get hit a lot better,
Yeah.
which is huge. Like if you're real flinchy, guys are going to start timing that the higher you get in the rankings. So it's good to see him nipping that in the butt now. But I'm not sold on Aljo, man. I'm just not sold on it.
A win that got him back on track, but it did not get him resold as a top 5 contender, which is what he's supposed to be. That's what he sold himself as. That's what he's expected to be. He's expected to be a perennial top 5 guy. It was a win that gets him. It keeps him from getting like on a complete slide, but it does not resell him as that top 5 guy.
No, I think it only gets him wins with guys who are ranked further down than he is. He's not moving up with this one.
All right. Before that, Devin Clark, Jake Collier. I was surprised at how fun this fight was, and I was pretty impressed too at how well Clark did for a dude who's like as beach body built as Clark is. I was surprised at how well he was able to fight into the 3rd round in this fight.
Yeah, I had absolutely no love for this fight going in, but it definitely surprised me. And I didn't know what to expect out of Clark. Like, it was hard for me to get a beat on him going into this. But he looked pretty damn dominant. I even gave him a 10-8 in that final round. So, I mean, he seemed to be doing everything he needed to do. And Collier seemed to be the one slowing down. So, yeah, I don't know. He's like a little ball of potential.
Yeah, it's a good win for him over somebody who's going to be active but isn't the best athlete in the world. Like, Collier will come at you everywhere all the time, but he's not a great athlete. He's not a great technician. So if you're more athletic than him and if you're willing to stick to, be patient and stick to your guns, you can beat him. And it was a good test for Clark to show that. So I was happy and impressed that he did show that off, because it's something he hasn't shown in the past. In his past couple fights, even when he's won, even when he beat Josh Stansbury, it was very much like, I need to preserve myself so I don't gas out. I need to try and walk you into a couple big shots every now and then and just try to coast out a win. This was not that.
And that's the thing. Like, if you can carry your cardio through 3 rounds at light heavyweight, I mean, you're going to get pretty far.
Yeah.
Gassing is really prevalent at 205.
So speaking of which, then we get to Anthony Smith versus Andrew Sanchez at 185. And man, Andrew Sanchez hitting the hype train wall against Anthony Smith, because his style makes him gas. And I did not think Andrew Sanchez would gas harder than Anthony Smith, because Anthony Smith has been even midway through the 2nd round, you could see a point where Anthony Smith quit on this fight. And he got beat up in that 2nd round before it. But Andrew Sanchez, he's got this really he tries to be this super athletic striker and then this really dynamic wrestler, and his cardio doesn't support it. And when he hit the 3rd round, he hit a wall, and Smith rallied on him.
Smith stayed composed. He was the most composed I ever seen him. Almost to a fault. Like, he was severely passive and just lethargic with his movements and really wasn't committing to his strikes. But shit, man, Sanchez petered out, and that's like the worst way to get beat is being tired, in my opinion. But,
well, and that backhand, the head kick, all he needed was a razor blade in his hand to be like
$150. Yeah, it wasn't the prettiest thing, but the head kick was dope. Finishing with the head kick.
I love that. I love that whole sequence where it's that to me is a classic action sequence where you're just I will hit you with everything and march in on you no matter what. And you better have offense coming back at me, because if you don't, it's all coming after you.
It was the Black Friday last PlayStation 4 available. You have to get it.
I love that kind of offense. I mean, it is. it is Tekken to the mat. It is like the Nate Marquardt Tekken, like back fist, right hook, left hook, high kick. Just beautiful. I love that finishing sequence. You can't get enough of it.
And then his hammer fists were lovely. I
Yeah.
dug it. He went over and was just squatted down and was just like kaboom, 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 kaboom.
So before that, too, Zach Cummins got. I kind of figured this would be, but it was kind of a gimme fight against Nathan Coy.
See, every time I see Nathan Coy's name, I always for some reason think of Kim Moy. And I'm like, why the fuck is Kim Moy in the UFC? But then I'm like, oh, it's Nathan Coy. Why the fuck is Nathan Coy in the UFC? You know what I mean? Like, what is this dude doing here? I have no clue how or why he's here. Like, he's 38 years old. Get him the fuck out of here.
He's a fun wrestle grappler. Like, he's got a good dynamic wrestle grappling game. But going into this fight, you really had to realize that the only person who has out-grappled Zach Cummins is Gunnar Nelson, and that was because he hurt Zach Cummins first. Like, it wasn't like Gunnar Nelson just took Zach Cummins down and then out-grappled him. He had to hurt him. And Cummins otherwise, he worked Jan Cabral on the mat, and Jan Cabral is a high-level competitive black belt.
Yeah, Cummins is like this bruiser grappler who's just – it's like he's not super technical, but he's just so ogreish with his style that it's just so hard to not be overwhelmed by it. And he got a technical submission. Yes.
And he's got great timing. That's the thing. It's like his striking, it's not the prettiest striking you've ever seen, but he hits dudes hard walking in on him because he's got perfect timing on when to place his strikes. It's very Dan Kelly. He's like Dan Kelly, but not the oldest man you've ever seen fight. Where it's
Cummins looks older than he is.
He looks older than he is.
He's got the old man face.
But Dan Kelly, you're watching him, and you're watching him just throw everything out there, and you're like, how does a guy who punches like this, how is he beating Rashad Evans? And it's because Dan Kelly has really amazing timing on when to throw what, and Cummins has that too. He knows when to hit you with what he's got, and it was way too much for Coy in this fight.
It really was. It's like Cummins looked great, but I know Cummins is not great.
Well, he deserves a top 15 matchup, if nothing else. I want to see the dude, he's been around long enough. He's probably every bit as good as he's ever going to be. Let the dude try and make a run. If he can't, he can't, but let him try.
Yeah, I guess somewhere top 20-ish for sure. But I don't know. I don't know anybody in the top 15 that would be appealing.
Yeah, whatever. Don't put too much thought into it. Just let it happen. All right. That brings us to the opener. Ketlin Vieira, Ashley Evans Smith. I was super impressed by Ketlin Vieira in this fight. She looked like she took a huge leap forward from her first fight, and it's the kind of thing that I think she can continue to build on in a division where anyone on a 3-win streak can be a title contender.
Dude, she showed up with hands.
Yeah.
Uppercuts that were they were you could hear them cracking. And I don't think Evan Smith was ready for that.
No.
I thought Evan Smith thought she was going to come out with this cute little outside kicking, side kick game. And she got hands put on her. And her wrestling was no help either because Ketlin was able to push her up against the fence when she wanted to. And, man, Ketlin definitely looked amazing here. And I think she should fight Caitlin Chikagian next.
Yeah, Ashley Evans Smith has this thing going on that you see out of some fighters sometimes where they get a whole bunch of striking training and they really take to this flowy strike style and they think that they've just got it perfected, but they really don't at all. And it's weird because Evan Smith is a good athlete. She's well trained. She's not bad she's not bad, but she was coming up 3 or 4 inches short on every punch. And then Ketlin Vieira is just oh, if you can't hit me, I'll just step in the moment you miss and hit you with 3 or 4 shots coming back.
Man, so I'm at the boxing gym the other day, and we had the young kids in there, and these kids came over from a neighbor gym, and the kid looked so great with his shadow boxing, right? And he's out there, and they're sparring, and he's out there throwing air punches, looking real pretty, and like the kids were just like, yeah, boom, 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 and just started bombing on them. And it's like you can have all this technique in the world, but if you never learn how to actually apply it to a fight, to like a moving person that's trying to hit you back, like that's not an overnight process. You know what I mean? Like that, you
Yeah.
have to build that over time. And changing camps is good, and working with other coaches is good. But if you go too far away from your base fundamentals, and just try a whole new style that really isn't you, I mean, you're gonna come up short in a lot of fights.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what the fight was that I saw recently where it was somebody just short arming literally every single strike they threw, and I can't remember what it
Holly
was.
Holm does that all the time.
Who?
Holly Holm.
Oh yeah, well Holly Holm does it, yeah. But there was somebody else who like he was in range fight like he short armed every punch. I can't remember who it was now. And it was to the point that he stepped inside to punching range finally and threw a step in elbow that then also missed by 4 inches. It's like you were finally in range to connect one of those punches and you threw an elbow. And it's just like the absolute definitive proof that you have no sense of how far you are from somebody ever. And
Range
Evan,
perception. That's no
Evan
range
Smith
perception.
has some of that going on where it's just like it does not look like you know how much distance is between you and your opponent at any time.
Or that you don't even expect your opponent to move. Like you're used to
Yeah.
hitting stationary pads and not ever having any variance in that.
Yeah. On the same side, though, Ketlin Vieira, her cardio held up. She was throwing combos. She looked pretty. She's big and she's tough, which in that division, I mean, if you can work aggressively for 15 minutes and you're big and tough, that'll carry you a long way. I mean, that's Raquel Pennington's game, and it's carried Rocky to being like title shot territory.
Yeah, which is crazy. I
Yeah.
actually, honestly, I wrote Rocky off a
Yeah.
couple fights back, and I was wrong.
So interesting to see Ketlin Vieira, what she can do there. Back to the main event. I don't know who the hell Demetrius Johnson faces next to break Anderson Silva's record. It doesn't
Man,
really matter to me at this point. All the fun is going to be who he faces when, like, the super fights he can get after that. Can he face Dominic Cruz again? Can he face Cody Garbrandt? Can he, lure some of these? Can he maybe do a catchweight fight against John Lineker? Like,
yeah, that would be fun.
that's all
Something.
the shit that I want to see now.
It's just hard to put him in a money fight because he's so light. I mean, you really got
Yeah.
Garbrandt, you got Dominic Cruz. I mean, maybe talk Uriah Faber to come out of retirement. That would be awesome. I would love to see that. Faber, Mighty Mouse.
Also, Dillashaw. I'd love to see Dillashaw versus Mighty Mouse. Like, there are top 5 featherweight or bantamweight fights out there for him, but at flyweight, I just hope he breaks the record quickly enough that he can move on to some cool shit.
Yeah, maybe like Ray Borg will get a win in. And
Yeah, if Ray Borg off another win would be probably the most exciting challenger that Demetrius Johnson could face right now.
Which isn't saying much because Ray's stand-up is not impressive in the least bit, in my opinion.
He's gotten a lot better, but it's still a bit of a problem. It would be an interesting fight for me. It would be a much better fight to me than Wilson Hayes, but
yeah, Ray's a lot faster than Hayes.
Yeah, but it's still one of those things where it's like compared to the lure of a Cody Garbrandt fight or something like that, it's just not the same.
Man, I don't know what to do with him though, except give the man some respect, right?
Yeah. No, I mean you gotta dominant champs like Johnson come once in a blue moon. These dudes do not happen. They do not get followed by dominant champs very often. You rarely ever see a dominant champion followed by somebody else who's dominant. You really only have like Chuck and Tito. That's basically the one time that's ever happened. Or I guess Hughes and GSP, but even GSP went through a bunch of shit to become the dominant champ after Hughes. Like he lost to Matt Serra in his first title defense.
Yeah, it's really amazing, and I'm afraid that we're not really going to appreciate him until after he's gone. Like
Might
it's
be.
just our dumbass, he's not a heavyweight knocking people out in one punch. It's like,
Well, we should start because the shit he's doing, shutting Hayes out like that. That's pretty amazing.
and also I think we should shout out Matt Hume also, who does not get nearly enough credit for being a crazy, insane fight master.
Yeah, he's got a
Shows,
controller plugged into DJ, and he's just out there like
it really shows what can happen when a coach puts everything into one fighter instead of a crazy stable. You know what I mean? Like, wow.
If DJ is the Street Fighter character who is massively overpowered compared to his other Street Fighter characters, Hume is the Street Fighter playing nerd who knows like all the combos perfectly and just plugs them all in. And
yeah, he's got the callous fingers and everything.
yeah, exactly. All right. Well, on that note, you can find me on Twitter at TheZaneTime. You can find Eddie on Twitter at TheEddieMercado. You can find both of us over at BloodyElbow.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, MMANation.com, DOTCOM. That's where you get all the latest Bloody Elbow shows, videos, interviews, analysis, all that good stuff. Give us a like on YouTube, too. That's a thumbs up thing down there. That helps us a ton, more than you'll ever know. And we will be back next week for Swanson versus Lobov. We will have If I Did It, Care Don't Care, Heavy Hands, Vivisection, 6th round, all our normal stuff. Knuckle Up's coming at you tomorrow night. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in, and you will hear us next time.